that to me is you're going for a challenge or a specific goal. You're doing like the 75 hard thing. That's great. People go in and they can do it for the 75 days, but I think people only see, well, yeah, they lost the weight and that's awesome. And that kickstarted them into their journey. Sure. For a few percent that actually did that. Majority of the time, what happens is they have that kickstart. And then after that 75 days, it's a binge. They go, I just put it into gear for 75 days. I focused and I did all the things. Now I'm just going to go back to the way that I was. So you just see they got the results, but check back in a year later, check back in 5 years later after that. The goal is to not go into fitness with the idea of I'm going to go in and I'm going to fall off. I'm going to go in and I'm going to fall off. You want the results. You want the lifetime guarantee of fitness. That to me is something that you can do once you get to the advanced level of, I want to do this marathon, or I want to do this crazy challenge, or I want to, add on how much more muscle. That's something when you have the behaviors down, that's when you can do that. That's not what you start with.
No, because that advanced person is then going to be able to just go back to their regular maintenance or thing of going to the gym 3 times a week, eating healthy, whatever. Like they can experiment with that. But
isn't that funny that is marketed more to the beginner person?
Yeah. I mean, there you go. It's marketed. Like people are making money off of it. It's like the 75 hard or the,
It has to have a name. Yeah. And that's why it works.
If it has a name, it's scary. Watch out. Beware. Yeah, it's the same thing that we talked about with food. It's like you don't have to market apples to people. There's not this big giant apple conglomerate that's pushing apples to you, but there is for cereal, there is for everything else. Mm-hmm. It's like it's kind of the same thing in the exercise world or even the diet world. It's like if people are pushing keto on you, look at all the companies that now have keto whatever. It's like it's just a way for them to make money.
Isn't that funny? Like thinking of keto as the diet. I bet 50%, if not more, people that are running a keto diet don't actually know.
They're not in keto.
What that
They're
means.
Not in ketosis. Yeah. They just think it means low carb or no carb,
right.
Which, yeah. Which is a separate thing. But it's the same thing with like, when the low fat craze came, everything was marketed as low fat now. The whole idea was to get low fat. There's a little bit of a movement of like zero sugar. Mm-hmm. It's like now it's zero sugar. And it's like, oh, okay, great. But still got all this other crap in it.
Yeah.
It's just a way for them to make money and get you to latch on.
So going to the behaviors, how I would approach this if I was myself or if I was talking to someone, a client or someone that I'm asking, giving advice for, whether it's asked or I'm just pushing it on them. I would start with, let's even backtrack. When I am teaching kids, or I'm sure parents do this, you can't just push the agenda on them, or you can't just go in and say, I'm going to teach this. I'm going to correct this behavior. I am going to instill these things. Because you don't know if that's what the kids are needing. You have to step back and start. Like your first step always is to observe. You have to observe to know what the game plan should be. So I think first initial step as a beginner, and maybe this would even work as we go on to the intermediate and advanced, you have to start with just observing yourself. Taking in the data of what do I naturally do? What do I naturally like? What is my natural flow of the day? And that might change, but just observe from the jump. For me, if I was going to observe myself, even in the lifestyle that I am in now, I might go, okay, well, I'm kind of a medium to slow starter in the day physically. And I can kind of start to ramp up, but then I also hit a point where I start to go back down. So if I have the ability, I'm probably not going to schedule my workouts right after when I wake up. If I have to get up early to work out, what are the chances of me staying consistent with that and for a long period of time? So my energy, I'm going to try to put it where it makes the most sense energy wise. I have the ability to do that. A regular person that has regular jobs, they might have to go, okay, what makes the most sense observing my life and observing my schedule? Does it make the most sense to do it before work? Does it make the most sense to do it after work? Could I do it on my lunch break? Does it make the most sense to schedule my 1 or 2 days on the days off because then I don't have to worry about anything else? Is it a weekend thing? Observing the schedule, observing your natural flow of life to see where is that fitness introduction, where is that going to be placed so that I know I can start to create a habit around it. Then with the nutrition, what is one thing that you observe that just could easily be cut out, maybe missed every once in a while, but it's not going to really change that much? For me, we don't really eat a lot of processed foods. I think the only thing that I could adjust if I wanted is I could cut out alcohol more. I could cut out the grain type of carbs, and I could focus more on my protein. Now, granted, that's 3 things, so I would maybe say focus on 1 or 2. Those things are not really crazy in my life, so I don't think just eliminating one of them would be that dramatic of an effect. I think I could do multiple at a time. But when I started working out and doing all that, my relationship to food was don't eat that much, but I'm going to eat shitty versions of food, but not in large quantities. So at that point, I just needed to focus on getting more protein, eliminating the processed foods, and that probably would have been enough. So observe to then know what the plan of attack is.
Well, I think I like the kind of Ramsey snowball method with this sort of stuff. It's like when you're beginning or starting out, start with something that's kind of easy for you to do or easier for you to do. And like you said, pick one thing, because I think over time you're going to have this sort of snowball method of, okay, well, I cut out this food that I know was bad for me and I'm not doing anymore. And then you do that for a long enough time and you start to realize like, oh, I don't even think about it anymore. I don't crave it anymore. I don't need it, or I don't whatever. And then you can kind of pick the next one. And then you may be tackling a little bit bigger of a domino. And then you just start to keep going and going. And all of a sudden you get this big snowball rolling down the hill. So I like that sort of method for this type of thing with nutrition, with exercise, with whatever. It's on the exercise front. It could be I don't do any activity, so let me start by just doing a 10-minute walk at the end of the day, or somewhere in my day where it's easiest and I don't have to get up early. I don't have to change my own schedule. Like I can just fit it in. I know that when I get home from work, I just sit there for the next 6 hours and don't do anything. So I'm going to get up and start doing a 10-minute walk. And then maybe you can increase that over time, or maybe you can add a second walk in during the day, or maybe you start to build up the courage to get a gym membership or whatever it might be. But I like the kind of snowball method of getting you rolling and getting you into it, because I think there's a lot more long-term sustainability when you do things slowly and effectively and you build it up over time, rather than let me start with all my chips in on the table. And, it's like that's where people just, even with that, it's like gambling or investing in the stock market. It's like people want to hit the big one right away. They don't want to sit at the table for 6 hours and like strategically play the hands and play the game the way that you should and win little bits over time and gather up this large amount. They want to go to the table, put all the chips in at the same time and go, okay, hopefully this works, and get the big payout. It's like you got to progressively build this stuff up. And I think if you can suspend the idea of I need to get to where I want to be right now, and you go, I'm going to do this the healthy way and the efficient way, is actually easier on you. That's where I think some of this, I don't know, change weirdness in the brain, or just like this block in the brain, is of we want to get to the goal so badly that we don't realize we're putting in so much more effort and so much more work than we really need to where if you do what we're talking about, it's like we're telling you to go on a 10-minute walk each day. That's way easier than I got to change my whole life. I got to go on keto. I got to go to the gym 6 days a week for an hour and a half. I need to do a 20-minute stretching session at the end of it. I need to do cold plunge and sauna and all this stuff. It's like, we're just saying do a 10-minute walk and then see where that starts to take you. It's like what we're suggesting is actually much easier than what most people are doing, of trying to put all their chips in on the table and just go for it.